Hey guys, Chairman John coming at you another Diablo 4 video. Okay, on this video, we're gonna kind of go into at what point do you max out your gear? Now, when I say that, when I hit the inventory button here, you can see that I have all of my gear listed on the right hand side. Notice that I don't have any 5 stars. The reason why is because up until a certain point, it doesn't make sense to go ahead and utilize and max level these. I am now at the point where my entire build is worth going up to +5. And the reason why we're going to make this video is because I want to talk about what I'm looking for and how the stats grow with it. So at what point does it make sense to go ahead and level up these gear? Because as season 1 is fast approaching, this also means that you're going to want to get into speed running. This also means you're going to be trying to min-max your gear as you go, because you learn that pre-season it's a lot of work, right? So you kind of got to maintain it as you go. And we're going to touch on, okay, how much do you actually get from going from 4 to 5, as well as which stats make the most difference on the builds that you should kind of be aware of when you're going to go ahead and upgrade a piece of gear, right? Because just because the gear has blank stats like this doesn't mean that it can't get potentially even better once it gets leveled up. Okay, so first things first, let's go ahead and let's pull up our handy dandy notepad. As you can see here, we have these stats listed for our attack, power, armor, and life. What we're going to be breaking down for you guys is, you can see I've already increased these stats by just going up here and leveling up my one helm here. We're going to break down more of what I was looking for, how to upgrade this gear, what is the actual overall income. We'll probably do some math at the end of the video to kind of summarize a little bit of what you're seeing. But the importance of this is to show you, as you upgrade these pieces of gear, maybe you don't take them all to 5 at once because of certain resources that you're going to be utilizing, but maybe you do pay attention to what the substats are, or the suffixes of these aspects are, so that way you know which ones are really going to be key to upgrade. So first off, if we look at our helm here, as you can see here, we upgraded this to the 5 out of 5. This is actually my first 5 out of 5 for the account. And you can see that dexterity is at +57 out of 63 max. It's pretty good. Overall, not a bad piece of gear. Could probably try to re-roll it to get rid of that healing received, and that'll probably make it even better. Now, when we go to the blacksmith here, let's say we want to upgrade the boots next. There are a few things to look at, right? So when you see that I upgrade the boots here, what's it going to do for me? When I click on the boots here, you can see that one, it's going to add +3 armor. This is a item power 770, so this means it's going to be like a tier 4 on the item list. It's not the max benefit here, but it's still not bad at the end of the day. You can see all stats goes up by 1, movement speed goes up by 1.7, +4 dex, some lightning resistance. Not that great, and what it would sacrifice is going to be these, basically these coiling wards and these forgotten souls. These are sometimes a little harder to come by, especially more so the coiling wards. These are salvaged from and used to improve legendary armor, right? So basically this is going to be limited to how many Legos you're getting and how many of these you're going to get. If you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of these pieces of gear times 5, you're looking at quite a lot, right? 55 just to fully deck out your character. So it's going to be advantageous for you to take everything up? Absolutely not. For example, this piece of gear here, its breakpoint level is below the threshold. I'm not going to upgrade it. We are going to move up though and go ahead and go to this one. This is a 790. This is a higher breakpoint. You can see that this gives me a +5, right? The other one gave me a +3. That's the difference, because depending on what breakpoint level you're at is what the boost is going to be. Notice that if I were to go ahead and increase this, there's a few things to talk about, right? Notice that when I take this to 5, my ranks of Dark Shroud goes from 3 to 4. That right there gives you a massive increase, which also, depending on your build, and some players may or may not do this, if you know you're going to always be rocking this on your suffix, you can then go subtract those points from your current tree and go assign them somewhere else to make the difference, right? And that's not necessarily the best thing to do, but in a pinch, sometimes that works a lot better for your build. That's why upgrading a piece of gear like this makes sense. Also notice that the imbuement skill cooldown reduction goes from 7.7% up to 8.2%. It's a 0.5% increase. Once again, it's 0.5%, but it's very helpful. Those types of changes really make a build flow a little bit better, because you get skill cooldown on others than just the pants, I believe. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna upgrade this one because this is a good investment to upgrade. Moving on, notice that also we did have some stats here have changed, not too drastically yet, but we will talk about them when they fully max out. Next, let's bring up is the gauntlet, right? So this gauntlet is a pretty good gauntlet that we've gotten so far. You can see that the critical strike damage isn't terrible. It's closer to the upper end, right? But we could get an additional 2%, which will then put us even further closer to it, right? It's a item power 7C6, so it's like right at the threshold of being close to the top tier. Lucky hit is not something to worry about. However, the 4 ranks of twisting blades is huge. Notice that you don't get anything additional from this because it's got the max already. However, we do get like ranks of flurry. If I was using flurry, that could be very helpful. Critical strike damage with the viewed skill is also helpful, as well as the lucky hit will eventually help. So we'll go ahead and we'll max out that one as well. Notice that as I'm looking at these, I'm looking to see what I'm going to gain, to see if it's worth it, right? Because like I said, these coiling wards come from legendaries. They're kind of harder to acquire. You really have to make sure that you are utilizing the right particular resources, so that way this isn't a waste of your time. As a new season start, you don't want to level everything up to 5, right? When you do that, well, one, you can't do that because you haven't hit world tier 3 yet, which is where you're going to get some of these upgrade materials. Or no, actually I think you can go all the way up to 5 before hitting that. I'm thinking of something different. However, it's not going to be advantageous. It's not going to net you the rewards, right? Like, we're looking at good gear here currently. You're not going to get godlike gear, so to speak. I'm going to go ahead and upgrade it because I have the resources, and these aren't terrible upgrades, but notice that I'm not getting a whole lot of stat increases here yet. Okay, so what am I actually gaining from this is very minimal. Now, however, when you to weapons, this does make a big difference. This will make a big difference, especially when you see down here where I have all stats. All stats is going to go up +5. That's a huge gain. That's all stats +5. That gives you a good damage modifier. This also has critical strike damage, is going to go up by 4%. Also huge, right? Puts us at 64% here over the 63 max. Damage to distance enemies, so on and so forth. Overall, it's worth taking up. We're going to go ahead and upgrade this one, and you notice that we got the increases here in attack power and everything else because we did that bonus. Now, when we move over to the other weapons are going to probably be one of the most impactful gear on your account. They really will make or break how well you're geared, how well your build will do. So for example, when we go ahead and we pop this one in here, I've gotten very good substats. I have damage to close enemies. I'm almost always doing damage to close enemies. That's how my build works. So that's a good one to have. Core skill damage, that's another one they use. Ultimate skill damage, I rely on heavily. And dexterity +6. Dexterity does a lot of damage in itself as a base, right? That is your skill damage. So having an additional 6 there is going to make a big increase on there, as well as overall, my critical strike damage is going to go up by a little bit as well as the top, and everything else is going to cascade with it. This is a higher breakpoint item, so I get more of a bonus from this. So this is going to be a huge upgrade where once again, I click that button, boom, we're doing a lot more damage. Same thing's going to happen when we look at this one. Obviously, you can see this is critical strike damage, vulnerable damage over time. These are all the same elements. We're going to go ahead and upgrade this anyways, but it's 799 item level. So because once we've hit that last breakpoint threshold, it's okay to upgrade these. That's my classification currently, because I don't want to waste these resources. Because notice that we did all this gear here, and we only have 77 left. I've been salvaging a lot of gear. Now we do have to go ahead and go to the jeweler to get the last little bit here, but so far what you've been able to see is if you look at the stats versus what they currently are, there's a big difference so far. And what we'll do is once we go ahead and upgrade the jewelry, we will take those stats and we will actually compare them apples to apples, so that way you have a better understanding of exactly what the difference is and modifier is if you take these up to 5 versus if you leave them at the 4-star, right? So if we go ahead and we pop in our jewelry here, notice that the jewelry is going to go up, total armor is going to go up, ranks of all agility skills is going to get a +1 to it, so it's going to become a +4. Imbuement skill damage is going to go up, dexterity is going to go up by, what is that, up a percentage, which is huge. That's a huge upgrade. So this one right here, you should see a good tick in the dexterity. It's a 762, now it's a 765. It went up by 3, and that was just because of the percentage modifier. Now if we go over here to the other one, this is critical strike chance, damage, poison damage, dot damage. This is all huge. This is a higher tier anyways. So when we upgrade this one, this is going to give me a massive increase in everything else that I really needed on this build. Last but not least, we're going to have the final ring. This is critical strike chance, damage to poison enemies, maximum energy. Could probably be swapped out honestly on this one. Unfortunately, I've already locked it in at critical strike, but that's okay. And damage to slow enemies. This one isn't going to be as impactful. We're going to go ahead and level it because it is going to give me some critical strike chance, which is something you always need to strive for in the game. However, look at the other stats. Okay, so if you were to say, let's say this was a tier 1, a level 1, you just got it. It wouldn't be advantageous for you to level this up. Critical strike chance would be helpful, sure. But let's say that it didn't have that. Let's say it just didn't have this first stat, the one that I rolled on it, which is critical strike chance. If I throw this away, you can see here. I should be able to see here now. There you go, perfect. Notice that the critical strike chance, you can't actually, like, it's 0.3%, okay? Not a massive modifier. If this wasn't on the piece of gear and everything else was as it was, none of these particularly stand out to a point where they're upgradable or they're a huge massive let's go get them, right? So this is one of those where normally I would not upgrade this. I'm going to upgrade it for the sake of the video because I want to see how big numbers, but in generally speaking, that's something you wouldn't have upgraded. You would have left it as it is. That's something to be aware of when you're upgrading these, because you need to be cognizant of what do you get by upgrading these gears. It's not necessarily direct power, right? Depends on what the affix is of the gear, whether it's direct power or whatnot. Something like one of these other pieces of gear here that has, let's say, like this one here, for example, damage to crowd control, physical damage, damage to slow enemies, cold damage. The only thing impactful from my count side is physical damage. The rest of it is garbage. I would never use it. I don't slow enemies, I don't crowd control them, and I don't do cold damage. So if I were to equip this because it was a better overall stat increase, I wouldn't want to upgrade this. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. But the general purpose is think about that when you're upgrading these gears, because you don't necessarily want to take everything to level 5. It's not necessarily the best thing for you. And if we look at this now, so we have basically at this point, we have, we've taken and we've upgraded all of our gear. Let's now record where we're at here, right? So if I go ahead and I look at this right now, what do I have? I have attack power is 8773, so that's about 200 above, right? Armor is 6270, life is going to be 6187, not a huge increase there, but a little bit. My strength went up by 5, which is going to do, what is that going to give me? The strength up by 5 is going to actually give me increased resource generation by a little bit, so that's impactful. Okay. Let's keep going back on over here. So if we go to intelligence went to 380, not a huge increase. Willpower 322. Once again, it's only 5, so it's not a huge increase. And dexterity is 765. That was 20. It was pretty decent, not too end of the world, but a little bit. But notice that the stats difference here. Notice from the top and the bottom, because right now attack power, armor, and really strength, dex are the real massive indicators of how well this was. So what we actually gained from upgrading all the way to 5 isn't necessarily the raw stats. That's not necessarily the go-to thought process for upgrading these, okay? What really makes the biggest difference if you should upgrade a piece of gear is not necessarily the stats here, because even though, yes, some of these are pretty good. Armor increase is going to be helpful. Strength increase is going to be nice. Dexterity is going to be nice. Overall, we're going to do a little bit more damage. But the thing that's the most critical about this and the topic point of the video It's a simple fact that, for example, we never upgraded this to 5. The reason being is because the stats on this piece of gear, one, it's not a main tier, and if we were to just get movement speed out of this, it's not necessarily worth it. Dexterity, all stats, great, but overall, not the best piece of gear. And if you were to look at some of these other pieces of gear, even though they could be potentially a higher item power, if the substats don't match your build and they don't complement as you upgrade them, it doesn't matter at that point, right? It's a waste of resources, waste of gear, and taking any piece of gear from 4 to 5 does take a lot of resources. So be cognizant of this always, and hopefully this helps you with your decisions on how to upgrade your gear, when it's time to upgrade, when it's time not to upgrade, so on and so forth. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.